It always looked slightly dry, but it was always humid because the area was near the Gulf of Mexico. We did not own a car. We could not afford one. We never traveled for vacations or other leisure activities. We only traveled to visit relatives, usually being driven by a family friend who owned a car, to places we could reach between sunrise and sunset. No one I knew drove overnight, so my family would have had no need for the Negro Motorist Green Book. Nonetheless, the publication's name and the article's brief description captured my imagination. I resolved to find out more. Back in New York after my work in London, I began my search by going to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. Located in Harlem and part of the New York Public Library, the Schomburg, as it is widely known, is America's premier archive for African American history. It contains a remarkable and growing trove of documents and artifacts about crucial, often little-known or overlooked histories, facts, and stories about Black Americans and their lives. Important for my purpose, and unlike any other archive I know, its collection of the publication I was looking for is almost complete. It lacks only one of the editions of the Green Book, which was published annually, except when publication was temporarily suspended during World War II, from 1936 to 1967. There, while I sat in a conference room in the rare books section, Associate Chief Librarian Myra Liriano brought me copies that I could hold in my hands and examine at leisure. This is no longer possible. The paper they were printed on has become too fragile. What I saw and read were listings of largely Black-owned enterprises, businesses that welcomed Black travelers in city after city and town after town across the U.S. I was amazed. Tallahassee, Florida, the nearest large city to where I grew up, was one of the first places I checked. Much to my surprise, I saw a listing for a lodging that I had never heard of, the Abner, Virginia Motel, on a street I knew well, Railroad Avenue. My relatives and I must have gone by it many times when going to Tallahassee to buy groceries or to see a doctor. But, not knowing its significance, I never paid any attention to the place. As I turned the pages of the Green Book, perusing listings in other cities where I had lived or visited, scanning articles featuring major U.S. vacation destinations, reading tips about how to prepare your car for a trip, and even advice about how to dress to project a respectable image while driving your car, one question echoed repeatedly through my mind. Why had I never heard of this publication? Then, just as I was beginning my research at the Schomburg in late 2015, I got an email from Jeremy Grange, a producer of radio programs at BBC Wales. In what seems a striking coincidence, he asked whether I would be interested in working with him as a presenter, called Host in America, on a documentary about the Negro Motorist Green Book for BBC Radio 4. Without hesitation, I said yes. At the time, almost none of my friends in New York and other U.S. cities had heard of the publication. The fact that Jeremy, a BBC producer living and working in Wales and not in the U.S., had also come across a mention of the Green Book in an article and thought it would serve as the basis for an interesting, informative documentary, made this opportunity feel profoundly fated. A quotation by James Baldwin kept coming to mind. A journey is called that because you cannot know what you will discover on that journey, what you will do with what you find, or what you find will do to you. I can't tell you